Intro music with a bright, curious tone, then fades. Welcome to Crisis in Perception. Today, we're digging into a classic, Bell Hooks' Feminism Is for Everybody. We're going to use it to get a real handle on the system of gender hierarchy. How is it actually built? What keeps it going? And how does it end up feeling so normal in our society? All right, so to really get what Hooks is saying, we've got to clear away some of the junk first. She knew that there are these huge misunderstandings about feminism that just shut the whole conversation down before it even gets started. Seriously, what pops into your head when you hear that word? Just take a second. For a lot of folks, that word is loaded. And Hooks saw this. She saw that for most people, the idea of feminism was shaped by these crazy caricatures, not what the movement was actually about. Yeah, you've probably heard them, right? That feminism is anti-male, that it's all about being angry, or that feminists are just man-haters. But Hooks says, look, these labels aren't just a mistake. They're basically a wall, put up on purpose to stop us from seeing what the real issue is. So to cut through all that noise, all that distortion, Hooks came in with a really powerful, really clear idea. Bell Hooks was a hugely important author and cultural critic, and she wrote this book, Feminism Is for Everybody, specifically to be that direct answer. It's short, it's easy to read, and it's designed to just replace all the fear and the fantasy with something clear and real. And boom, here it is. This is the heart of it. This is Hooks' definition. Feminism is a movement to end sexism, sexist exploitation, and oppression. Now, that might sound simple, but it's way more than just a definition. It's a tool, a lens. It completely reframes the whole conversation. And here's why that's such a game changer. When you define it that way, the target completely shifts. Suddenly, the problem isn't men. It's not a fight between men and women. The enemy is sexism. It's a struggle against a system, not against other people. And that distinction is absolutely crucial. Why? Because sexism is a system that we all grow up in. And that means anyone, man or woman, can buy into it, can act it out. Hooks is really clear about this. We're all socialized from day one to accept sexist ideas and actions. It's a systemic problem, not just a women's issue. Okay, so to help us actually see this system, Hooks gives us this brilliant metaphor. Think about the frame of a house. She wants us to imagine patriarchy, which, by the way, she says is just another word for sexism baked into our institutions, as the load-bearing frame of a house. The beams and supports that you don't really see. But that invisible structure, it holds everything up. It decides where the walls go. It dictates the entire layout. And this is the key. You can change all the decorations you want, right? Paint the walls a new color, buy new furniture, but those are just surface-level changes. They don't touch the structural beams. Those beams are the real rules of the house. They're what determine how power, authority, and even work are divided up. And just changing the decorations doesn't do a thing to change that underlying structure. But here's the thing. That frame isn't just standing there by itself. Nope. It's being held up and reinforced by a whole network of other systems, all locked together. So how does this frame stay so strong? Well, there are these powerful patterns at work. You've got our institutions, think family, school, the workplace. They all reinforce the rules of this frame. Then you have media and culture, spinning stories that make the whole setup seem, just natural. And on top of all that, there are some pretty powerful incentives in place that protect this whole hierarchy and keep it running. And this is exactly why Hooks says you have to look at the bigger picture. If you really want to understand how that frame stays standing, you can't just look at gender in a vacuum. You have to see how it locks together with the systems of race and class. They all prop each other up. And right there, that is the crisis in perception. The moment we try to pull gender out and look at it separately for race and class, we completely miss how the whole structure works. To hammer this point home, Hooks actually gave the system a name: white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. It shows these aren't separate problems. They are one single interconnected design. Okay, so what do we actually get from looking at feminism through this kind of systems lens? What's the big takeaway? Well, the most important thing to get is this. The problem isn't just a bunch of bad people making bad choices. The problem is the design of the system itself. Systems like patriarchy persist because the design, and all the incentives baked into it, are perfectly set up to produce the same hierarchical outcomes over and over again. But Hooks doesn't just leave us staring at the problem. She ends with this really powerful, really hopeful vision. She invites us to imagine a world built on a totally different blueprint, a world with no domination, where the way we interact is shaped by mutuality. And for her, that's the passionate political core of feminism, the real work of actually building that better world. This project is free and publicly accessible. If you'd like to support the time, tools, and research behind Crisis in Perception, you can become a supporter on Patreon. For a longer, audio-based analysis of this topic, see the deep dive linked in the description. If you enjoy this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.